What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another stream for you guys. We are going to be assessing what happened last night in Nottingham as Spurs crashed out the Carabao Cup at the first stage that we entered it in the third round. 2-0 against bottom of the league, Nottingham Forest. And where the hell are we going to start with that last night?
The end.
That was a good stream for you guys, everyone, and that was how we assessed the Nottingham Forest game last night. But no, it was absolutely no. But seriously, it was
diabolical, wasn't it?
It was absolutely shocking last night. And the thing I want to say is that obviously the players are completely out on their legs. They are shattered, absolutely shattered, and you could see that Harry Kane hardly had a kick of the ball last night. The players seem out on their legs by playing 3 games a week, week after week with this
same players as well.
The same players with this incredible schedule that we've got going on right now. So the question I have is that if Conte and the medical team and the coaching staff know that, then why for this game are they not putting in, people from the academy, kids coming through like every other team is doing?
And I think that was a mistake, because I think if I think not necessarily to win the game, but if we are going to go out, you might as well give some of the younger players or players who have less of an opportunity a chance in this game to gain some minutes and to gain an opportunity to impress the manager, rather than tire out your already knackered players even more in an attempt to try go through, and that clearly didn't work. So I think the reason was he wanted to win. He wanted to go through. And he felt like that was his best chance. It shows his lack of trust in the other players, to be honest. But in terms of, I don't think anyone can accuse Conte or the management staff of not taking the competition seriously, because I think the fact that we saw a lot of the big hitters did mean we took it seriously. However, it backfired massively, because Kane was taken off after an hour.
Yeah.
Højbjerg was taken off at half time. These players were out on their feet. We had no energy. We couldn't get near the Forest goal pretty much for a lot of the game, and we were completely overrun. And the Forest looked a lot fresher than us, and we could have done with a bit of the energy for maybe some younger players, that other teams, like you look at Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea. I know 2 of those teams went out and as well, but at least they're probably going to have fresher teams for the weekend. And yet we're in a situation where we played pretty much our first team for a lot of it, and they're going to be knackered come Saturday now. Yeah,
completely agree. And also, this is a Nottingham Forest side that made 9 changes to their starting 11 yesterday. And I know we made a couple, but you're talking about players that have come in for Spurs that are, season pros, regulars, Bissoumas, Højbjerg was there. You had Skippy in the middle, who's one of our better players at the beginning of last season. Doherty, Irish international. You've got players there that are full internationals for their countries, and they're putting in performances like that. And it's an absolute disgrace, the kind of performance. I don't even think it was an effort thing last night. I just think they were completely out on their legs, and the quality is just not there. Like the defence last night, look at the defence. Davinson Sanchez on the right, who was absolutely terrible. Every time he gets the ball, he seems to be getting worse and worse on the ball. I mean, he is just a liability at the best of times. You've got Eric Dyer in the middle again. I thought put in another poor display yesterday. Clement Longley, who I thought was probably the best of the back three, and even he looked shaky last night. Ryan Sessegnon, I mean, Jesus Christ, Ryan Sessegnon, he is getting worse and worse as well. I don't know. I don't even know where to go with Ryan Sessegnon anymore. I'm losing a lot of faith in the guy. A lot of faith.
Yeah, recently his performances have been really poor, really poor. Ever since he had a really decent run, like a few games ago, when he played against Brighton and I think it was Frankfurt, and he was having a nice little run, and then he got taken out of the team, and then he came back in, and since then he's been pretty woeful, to be honest. For over the past few games, whenever he's played, he's looked shorn of confidence. Defensively, looks suspect, looks weak as well on the ball. He's getting out-muscled, out-paced, and when he's asked to provide some quality, he very rarely provides it from the left-hand side. So he's becoming also a bit of a liability in these past few games. Hopefully, maybe he can reset after the World Cup. It's important to note as well, on the hour mark, he clearly picked up an injury as well, which clearly he was struggling with for the last half an hour. He didn't look like he was able to run at all in that last half an hour. So that's obviously not all his fault, but the performance before that definitely is for the first hour, and he was terrible.
Maybe you can explain that for the last half an hour, but what happens for the first hour of that game? How do you explain that performance from Ryan Sessegnon? And you're talking about the wing-backs as well, in that they don't even play week in, week out. The tiredness issue shouldn't even be an issue for those lot because they're not playing like Harry Kane and Højbjerg every single game without stop. You know what I mean? Sessegnon's been rotated with Perisic, even though, both of them played last night. And on the other side, Doherty and Emerson have been rotated as well. And I thought Doherty was, again, shocking last night. Spence came on towards the end of the game, showed a bit of energy, and at least he's got a bit of pace about him and likes to go direct and run at the defence and run at the opposition. I know Spence maybe wasn't amazing when he came on, but he actually offered something at least. And he got in the box. He had a good header that the keeper was equal to. So I think Spence probably offered more than Doherty and Sessegnon put together yesterday.
Yeah. Not saying much, but he was bright. But again, you can see he's still very raw, can't you? You see clearly he's got quality. He's got amazing pace. I think his first touch, he dribbled past like 3-4 players into the centre of the pitch and won a free kick. Obviously, he wasn't able to do that consistently, but he's definitely still very rough around the edges, and he needs a bit of refining. But clearly, he's got quality, and that's why we want to see him get more minutes so he can refine that, and he can start to prove himself. But at the moment, Conte feels like he's not ready to start games, and I understand that, but at the moment we have Emerson Royale, who's really stinking the place out pretty much week in, week out, and then Matt Doherty, who I think he's okay when we play a 3-4-3 because he has that support close to him, but once we go to a 3-5-2 and he's asked to dominate that wing, the wide areas even more, he struggles a lot more, I feel, in that 3-5-2 formation. He has less support, and also defensively it's more on him to cover those areas. I think Doherty, he's at his best when he has players around him he can play short passes to, he can give and go, he can get in the box at the back post and things like that. But when you're in a 3-5-2, because there's not as many players out wide, the responsibility is more on you to dominate those wide areas, and that's when he gets more exposed, I feel.
Yeah. And
again, it happened yesterday.
Yeah, it did. And it's a hard watch, to be honest. It's a really hard watch. I mean, can you name me one player, maybe apart from Fraser Forster, that actually played well yesterday? Because I was actually really impressed with Fraser Forster yesterday.
He played well.
Made some really good saves. He was keeping the score down, wasn't he?
Honestly. Even first half, he made a couple of good saves. Second half, couldn't do much with the goals, but he made some really... like at 2-0 as well, Brendan Johnson goes through one-on-one and Forster comes out and saves. He made some really big saves at times yesterday, Fraser Forster. So from his point of view, it was a fine debut. I thought of him coming for crosses and punching and things like that. He looked strong and he looked good. So it was a good performance from Forster, but he shouldn't have been tested as much as he was. It was ridiculous. They had, if I look at the stats, they had 8 shots on target yesterday, which is ridiculous. How are going away to Nottingham Forest and having 8 shots on target?
It's a disgrace. It's nothing short of a disgrace.
They changed so many players, and as well 9 changes. So
they had 14 goal attempts in total, 8 on target. And again, it's one of those games where Spurs dominate the possession, but can't seem to do anything with it, and then come under fire all those chances. And like I said before, Fraser Forster keeps us into the game. Keeps us in the game against Nottingham Forest.
It was just a horrendous look. For any way you look at it, it was a horrendous day at the office. There's no doubt about it. It was just bad all round from start to finish. There aren't even many positives like you can cling on to in terms of like moments in the game where we were on top and looked like we were going to score. Even they go down to 10 men with 15 minutes to go, and I know Sessegnon also had an injury, so you could say we were down to 10 men technically, but we looked even less likely to score when they were down to 10 men. I know Richarlison had a goal ruled out for offside. That was pretty much it. We didn't create anything in those last 15 minutes, and when they get a man sent off, you think this is an opportunity to really put the pressure on and see what they're made of, and we had nothing to offer, absolutely nothing, and it was a bit of a shambles for the last part of the game. So it's just it was just a really, really bad day.
And even Richarlison and Kulusevski, when they came on, couldn't really force the issue at all. I mean, Kulusevski had a few half moments, couldn't really do much. Richarlison looked a bit more dangerous than Kulusevski.
He looked a bit brighter.
But still, I mean, he had that goal ruled out for offside.
He had a chance which nearly rolled over the line as well, where they cleared it off the line from the corner, which was actually given a foul on their goalkeeper, which I wasn't sure about. And then he also had a shot from just outside the box, which dragged a bit wide. But it wasn't enough.
When you're looking at this competition, right, the next round, if we would have got through, would have been 4 days after the World Cup final. The round after that would have been in January again. And the round after that, which is the first leg of the semi-final, would have been 1st of February. I mean, is it a bit of a blessing in disguise we are going out so early because there are so many games, even in January again, when the World Cup finishes and we go back to playing football, the games are going to come thick and fast again. So can our squad handle being in this competition?
Probably not. And so obviously, it wouldn't, given our trophy situation, we're not in a position to take any trophy for granted. But at the end of the day, when you look at the big picture and the long-term effects of being in this competition, considering that it's going to be squeezed in with the FA Cup as well, second half of the season, all these kind of things.
In January, they're playing the 4th round, 5th round, and 1st of February, the first leg of the semi-final. Plus, in January, you've also got FA Cup.
Yeah, and then
all in January.
And then the Champions League comes back in February as well. So it's going to be madness as well come the second half of the season. So in that sense, it's not the end of the world that we're out of the League Cup. It really isn't. It's it's the least of our priorities. That's for sure. And it's not there are definitely bigger things we can fight for. And we're still doing all right in the other competitions right now. So we're not in a bad position. We have a lot to fight for in those other competitions. But it's just disappointing that we're, again, lessening our opportunities to get to break that trophy down by going out. But is it any surprise? I think a lot of the European teams went out yesterday. I think City beat Chelsea, and Liverpool went through on penalties.
Yeah, and City. I mean, when you're talking about City, Chelsea, one of the European teams had to go through because they played each other, obviously. Exactly, but every European team that played a non-European team, I think, went out last night.
Yeah, and that's probably telling, to be honest, about about how these teams who are in Europe are struggling with the schedule.
We're the only ones that played like the strongest team possible.
Yeah.
The only ones. We literally played the strongest team possible last night. And he was talking about managing the players. Harry Kane was feeling, fatigued and stuff. And then he made a decision morning of the game. Make the decision to rest him. When you've got a big game coming up against Leeds on the weekend, make the decision to rest him.
Apparently the day before, Conte said in his press conference the day before the game, he ended training early, Kane, because he was so fatigued and tired. So why start him the next game? At least start Richarlison and play him, even if it's going to be a half, and then if we need Kane, bring him on at half time. But or do something else. But start Kane. For an hour, tire him out where he has no effect on the team, where he has risk of injury, and it didn't work anyway. It didn't make sense to me.
He was just on the pitch yesterday because his name is Harry Kane. He offered literally nothing because he was so tired. Mm-hmm. He hardly had a kick of the ball pretty much the whole time he was on the pitch. And you're talking about Højbjerg and Bentancur as well. Played 45 minutes each because of fatigue as well. Keep them out the team. Go for 3-4-3. Put Bissouma and Skip in there or something. I mean,
play Hill.
We don't exactly play Hill. You don't need to play these players that are obviously of risk of injury and of high level of fatigue, and players that are playing literally every single minute of the season. If Nottingham Forest can play and make 9 changes, we can make similar amount of changes.
Yeah. But you just know if we would have rested lots of players and still gone out, people said, "Oh, why didn't he's chucking away the competition? Why didn't he play this one?
If he comes out and explains it and says they're of risk of injury and they're fatigued, you'd understand it.
Some fans would. We would. A lot of fans maybe wouldn't. Would still not.
Maybe.
You see Romero being injured. Oh, where's Romero?
Yeah, I get that. And, some fans are very reactionary and like to dig in as and when. But I think that when you look at it, with your mind and properly, I think you'd accept the decision.
I agree. And but unfortunately he didn't do that. But he did. Look, are we going to criticise him for taking the competition too seriously? Is that a criticism?
No, he's not being. You want to take it as seriously as possible, right? But on the other hand, you need to, like you said last night, like you're saying today, look at the bigger picture. Look at the game that we got on the weekend. Carabao Cup is probably our best opportunity for a trophy this season. You got to say that. But if you know the players are very fatigued and you're going to play them anyway, what's the point of playing them? It's much more likely to win if you're going to play some of the fringe players and have more energy about them.
He didn't think that, did he?
Yeah, he didn't think that.
No, he doesn't try because he doesn't trust the depth. And to be fair, having Kane at 60%, are we more likely to win than having Lucas Moura's not even at 100%, but you'd probably have to play in Brian Hill, he doesn't trust, and then Kulusevski and Richarlison both clearly not fit enough to start yet. So it's a difficult situation he's in. Then you've got Perisic up front. Is he going to obviously win you the game? Probably not. So he probably felt having Kane at 60% was his best chance to win. But
he was clearly wrong.
He was wrong, because we lost at the end of the day. But then again, you say he's wrong, we might have lost anyway. So,
yeah.
But then again,
but if we're going to lose anyway, you may as well play the fringe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But hindsight is 20/20.
Exactly. I would have played. I would like to give Jed Spence a start. All these different things, but it was. Look, I kind of felt like maybe it was one of those days yesterday for Conte where you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, and it was just a really bad day at the office. But at least. The worrying thing is that's 5 games in a row in domestic games we've conceded 2 goals. We've
gone 2-0 down.
2-0 down, sorry. That's the 8th game in a row we've conceded the first goal. So these trends are worrying and they're not good. But thankfully, the international break is going to be upon us very, very soon. We only have one more game to go. If we can get a win, end off this period, very tough period for us with a win, and just cement our place in top 4 before the break, then I think we can look forward to the second half of the season.
It's going to be extremely difficult this weekend against this Leeds side. They've got their tails up at the moment. They are full of energy. They run at 1,000,000 miles an hour. They've got creative players. They're not in Europe as well, so they're only playing 1 game a week, more or less, apart from the cup competitions. So it's going to be a really difficult game this weekend. No two ways about it. And I'm actually worried coming into this game this weekend. But I do think after the break, once we get a bit more I say a bit more energized, but we've got probably about 11 players going to the World Cup. Mm-hmm. So how re-energized can we actually get?
We'll have to wait and see. I mean, for a lot of our players, especially like Kane, you expect him to go fairly deep into the tournament. Like, it is going to be draining. So we have to see how they come back from the World Cup. But we need a bit of help in January for sure. We can't keep going with how the squad is going right now in January, because at the moment we have players like Gil, Sarr, even you can say, Spence, Sanchez, who they might as well not be part of the squad because Conte doesn't trust them to start. So they're not an option basically right now. He would rather tire out, all our other players and play these players. So they might as well not be an option.
Agreed.
So right now, on paper you can pull these players in our squad, but they're not really options. So we do have a thin squad at the end of the day. So we need reinforcements in January to help get through to the end of the season, so we have more options, and it's going to be a very hectic second half of the season as well. But at least right now, there's not. At least the old World Cup would have been behind them, so that's not going to be in the back of players' minds. And any players who maybe either had it in the back of their minds or were saving themselves for the World Cup or anything like that, that's not going to be the case after the World Cup. So hopefully we will see an improvement in performances and things like that, and energy levels, and that's what you got to hope for, because that's the only reason I can think of why leading up to the World Cup we've been seeing the level of energy levels we have in games, because why can't we play 90 minutes at the intensity that we have in second halves for a lot of the time? And even yesterday we didn't even play in the second half. Couldn't play at all.
I was getting so excited at half time. Like, we didn't concede in the first half. Surely second half Tottenham are going to show. And it was even worse. Even worse that second half. And it's hard to take, because you travel all that way up to Nottingham, getting back at silly o'clock, whatever time it may be, and you have to, and it's just like a funeral on the way home. It's just like, after watching that, what is there to say?
Yeah, there's nothing really. First, I was watching the fan show last night, and Rez say, did we learn anything yesterday that we didn't already know? And I agree with him, probably not. I don't think we did. It was all the same problems coming again. So and there's nothing really you can show from the game like how we lost the game. It was just like we got thoroughly battered by Nottingham Forest, and obviously, look, I don't think that's our level. I think we know that we're better than that. So there has to be other reasons why the game turned out to be the game, rather than we are that bad. I don't believe we are that bad, but it was just a shocking day at the office. You can't logically say how we lost so badly to a Nottingham Forest side who made 9 changes when we didn't. But you know, you just got to put it down to. If you don't put it down to fatigue, you're gonna end up crying. You know what I mean? So you have to. I have to, for my own sanity, put it down to tiredness and all these kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, you've got players in that team that aren't good enough when they're not tired. So when they are tired, and,
Exactly, they're all
and surrounded by, maybe even they're not tired, but they're surrounded by players that are tired. You know, it's going to be a very difficult situation. You've got players like Matt Doherty, you've got players like Davinson Sanchez, you've got players like Emerson Royale, didn't play last night, Ryan Sessegnon, Ben Davis. You know, all these players are not good enough to where we want to be, and that's just the facts of the matter. And until we replace these players, or at least drop some of them to the bench and get better players to start the team for the team, we're going to see these kind of performances and these kind of results.
I mean, they've been good enough a lot of the season to be getting results against that level of opposition, to be honest. But obviously, when we play a high level of opposition, they definitely struggled, and that's when they've been found out. They've been fairly consistent against the other teams.
Yeah.
But yesterday, yeah, definitely a mixture of fatigue and also lack of quality was definitely the difference. But we all know there are the positions that need upgrading. We all know, like, there's no secret. Conte knows it as well, and it's about the recruitment and the board to make sure that they get it for him, because I think it's painfully obvious. If we get those upgrades, we're going to be a much more serious team, much better team. But right now, these areas are just letting us down. It's clear for everyone to see.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. But it's a hard one to take last night because we all knew it coming into this season. Conte knew it, we knew it. The only person that didn't know it was the people making the transfers. You know what I mean? And everyone was calling on Spurs to beef up the defence, get better players in the defence, get better wing backs in, but you know, they didn't do that, and now we're struggling for it. But super chat here from Sam Kang saying, I still can't believe why we let Aurier go. And we were saying this last night, weren't we? It was like, Aurier walks into our team right now.
He had another good game,
didn't he? He walks into our team last night, and we hounded Aurier out of the club. We hounded Trippier out of the club, and both of them absolutely walk into this team. Yeah,
we've said it before. So he had another good game last night, Serge Aurier. He was pretty solid at right back, much better, looked better than our right back. So what can I say? Obviously, I'm not clamouring for him to come back, but it just goes to show how bad our recruitment has been when Aurier, who we cancelled his contract, would start for us. That's just a really
we cancelled his contract.
We cancelled his contract. That's a mad indictment of how our recruitment has been in some positions over the past few years. So if that's the best representation, Trippier I would take back. He's a different case. I would genuinely take him back right now in our team. Obviously, that's never going to happen now. He's at Newcastle, but he's been one of the fullbacks of the season,
if not the.
Exactly, he's going to be starting for England at the Euros.
I saw a stat last night with Trippier. The metrics for him, like all the positive metrics for a fullback, is first in the Premier League everywhere.
I think that's probably got to the stage at this point where you have to say that was a mistake.
Absolutely,
letting him go, big mistake.
And we were all guilty of it. Yeah. I said it at the time. I said, look, get rid of him. Blah blah blah. He had a terrible season, but then he comes out afterwards saying he was suffering from injury, and Spurs kept persisting that he played. Yeah. So we didn't manage that situation.
We didn't even let him go for that much. It was 20 million. We let him go fairly easily. And I think he's probably become a bit of a better player as well. Atletico Madrid tying up his defensive game, it seems though, and he's always going to have that final third output. He's one of the best crossers of the ball in the Premier League, and obviously he's creating chances for fun. Imagine having him for set pieces and him at right wing back with the license to get forward like our right wing backs now. I think he would be brilliant under Conte. But so we made a massive error letting Trippier go, and we're suffering for it massively. You know, now we have to put up with these Emerson and Doherty performances. So sometimes as well, but that's also a case of a learning curve, not just for the club, but also the fans as well, who always call for players to leave, and then they do leave, and some, you know, we're not always right when we give up on players. And that Trippier was definitely the case in that, and I think all fans have to accept that because most of the fan base wanted him, us included. We wanted him to be sold.
You know, another player that probably gets into this team is Juan Foyth.
Yeah.
You know?
Probably.
He's another
better
player, right
than
back,
Sanchez.
centre back.
I'd much rather have him than Sanchez.
Yeah,
Much rather have him than
100%.
Sanchez.
He's another one that we let go way too early. And then we're keeping players like Davinson Sanchez, like Eric Dyer, like Matt Dock, like all these players that we're keeping them over these players that we've got rid of that walk into this team. That just shows you how screwed up this recruitment system is that we have.
Yeah. So it's been absolute shambles. What can I say?
But yeah, I think that brings a close to our match review from the game yesterday.